hopefully we don't have to pay copyright for that. Probably.
Awesome, folks. I want to say thank you very much for all of you guys for hanging out. Awesome. And it's always fun for you guys sitting here singing songs about things and just trying to figure out how to make the show sound a little bit different, since I really sucked at doing that intro last time. So thank you guys. So this is WPwatercooler. This is episode number 311, as I say, 311. And this particular episode is brought to you by ServerPress, makers of desktop servers. So make sure you go over to our website over at serverpress.com. We appreciate that. So today we're going to be talking about automatic updates. This is something that's come up. It comes up quite often. We have these issues that happen, and it's like, oh, more automatic updates. Great.
Should we introduce ourselves first, or?
Yeah, we should introduce ourselves.
Who cares? We're just some
Danny,
people.
how about you, dude? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I grew up in Brazil, moved here in 1996.
I'm a Pisces.
He does what you ask.
Fast forward, now I live in Las Vegas, and I co-organize the WooCommerce meetup, and I'm a regular at the WordPress meetup here in Vegas too. Been using WordPress since 2010, mostly.
Nice.
He's a good follower of directions.
Yep.
Steve, what's your life story?
I am Steve Zegan. I'm the founder of Zeek Interactive. I run the OC WordPress meetup. And I'm also on the organizing committee for WordCamp OC. Tickets are on sale now.
Wow.
Sweet. Miss Say Reed, how about you?
Oh, hey, hi, I'm Faye. I don't live in Minnesota. Is that cultural appropriation? Shit. Who am I? I make WordPress, preach WordPress, teach WordPress at Say Reed Media on all the things. And I don't know if I'm going to any of those camps. I was just trying to figure, what day is that camp? That OC camp? That there?
April 27th and 28th.
Okay, I'm gonna go to that one. That sounds like a plan.
You should. We miss you.
Yeah.
How about you, Jason Cosper? Tell us about yourself.
Hey, what up, everybody? It's Jason Cosper, Aquarius, aka Fat Mullenweg. Just happy to be here and talk WordPress.
Awesome. Good to have you on, man. Good to have you on. I'm Jason Tucker. You can find me at Jason Tucker on Twitter. My website's jasontucker.blog. And I do the show as well as WP Blab. You can go take a look at that. That happens on Thursdays. We actually talked about design on one of these shows. We have never talked about design, I don't think, at least
that's not true.
Not in a great way on here. But we talked a lot about design yesterday. And it was pretty neat because Michelle actually works, one of our clients is Target. And we were talking a whole bunch of stuff.
Media.
Yeah, Marktime Media.
Sorry.
And so it's just about
plugging.
Their culture and stuff, and it was really cool. So definitely go take a look at that episode. Nice. It was pretty great. So let's talk about updates. You know, we had new versions of WordPress come out. We've had Gutenberg come out. We've had all sorts of fun things that just kind of blew up in our faces and just things start breaking. What do you guys think? Where should we start with this?
I hate automatic updates.
Get redder and redder, but
I've always hated automatic updates. Automatic updates, I have them disabled on literally everything. So
let's start with Manny.
I'm on that side. Hey.
Manny asked a question during the pre-show, and I think it was good. So let's start there.
Yeah.
This week something happened here. I got like 4 calls from clients that the sites out of the blue got like the white screen of death. And then I realized the hosting companies pushed from 5.6 to 7, PHP 7, and that broke their sites, you know. So I guess they must have had like notifications to those clients, but they didn't pay attention or anything, right?
Right, so, they just ignored those emails.
So let's give some background for the audience, because we're in a weird transitional period right now, right? We've got 2 major technologies that are going through transitions. We've got WordPress going from 4 to 5, right? So Gutenberg got rolled out, and we've got PHP being upgraded from 5.x, typically 6, to 7 or 7.1 or 7.2, depending on where you're at, right?
It's a perfect storm.
There's a lot happening at once, but PHP 7, I think is an important one to talk about because, and Cosper could probably address this, but PHP 5 is being sunsetted, right?
Yeah.
PHP 5 is sunsetted.
It's sunsetted. So when is it?
It's sunset.
But so support, there's no longer support for PHP 5. It works, but it's no longer being supported. So
Right.
yeah.
And PHP 7 is on its way out. I believe it's only getting security releases at this point.
I love that we're talking about automatic upgrades to a software base that is literally being phased out. Like, that's how behind this is. This discussion about PHP has been happening for years.
Yes.
Years.
But
Years and years.
Now, at the very least, in the state of the word, Matt has said, and they are working on getting the minimum requirement from 5.2 to 5.6, which is phased out, but still, then they will move it up to 7, 7.1, 7.2. They're basically on a timeline and have something set to get us on a more modern version of PHP.
But here's the deal, right? You can turn off automatic upgrades for WordPress, right? So your core code in WordPress can't be updated, but you can't turn you can't turn off an automatic update for PHP.
Depending on the kind of host that you have, there's like 10 million notices, but really those notices have shifted. They're no longer saying, oh, if you want to opt out, click over here. Now they're saying this is happening, get your stuff in order.
So I'm good point. I mean, I'm referring to managed hosts, but I know on WP Engine, I can't turn off those upgrades to PHP 7.
Oh,
those just are
going. So they're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question too. What happened if, like, when we go to the minimum requirement to be 7, what happened to those plugins that doesn't work on 7? Are they going to be out of?
Too bad, so sad.
But are they going to still be available on the repo?
I mean, that's a good question. I assume.
Is that rhetorical?
I assume that they will be for some time until the meta team and the plugin team, decides what they want to do. I'm sure that's a discussion that if they haven't had already, they're going to have. So I would hope that they stop at least showing the results when you search for them, but they'll still, be there if you visit a slug directly or whatever. That's what I assume will probably happen in the short term.
Well, we've actually talked about this quite a bit in recent weeks, right? So pay attention to what's going on the WordPress plugin directory, right? If a plugin hasn't been updated in a while, or if it shows that it's not compatible with the most recent version of WordPress, those are things to pay attention to, or you can end up like Manny's clients.
Yeah, because right now,
not all your I'm not right.
Yeah,
I'm just saying clients.
Yeah, right now, once you go to a plugin page, it does say like PHP version, 5.2 or higher, but that is not actually true to many of those.
Right.
So,
and some of those plugins just never get updated because the developer's like, you know what? I'm going to let this ride. I already wrote this thing. It's great. It does one little echo and that's it. There's nothing special going on here. I'm just going to put that out there, and they just put it out there and they never update it, and it just sits there, but everyone's using it still. And you're like, at some point you got to update this thing, dude. Like, I don't know, just.
It's like as somebody with plugins in the repo, it's not that hard to go into the appropriate files, bump it, bump the compatible PHP version, bump the compatible WordPress version, and then basically save it out, do a subversion check-in, which is probably the hardest part, and then you're good.
Yeah.
Do you guys think this happened because the foundation is still running on this old source control software instead of GitHub or Git?
No, I don't think that has much to do with it. I mean, it's fairly straightforward from like Casper said, if you're a developer that even knows a little, I mean, go into the subversion page on WordPress and figure it out. It's not difficult. It has nothing to do with the version, with the type of code repository that it's running on now. What I think is that, look, there's just plugins that have been abandoned, right? That's just what happens, right? People throw up a plugin and they don't manage it anymore, and we can't expect that they will. They're doing this on their own time and on their own dime. So it's really up to us as developers and up to site owners to pay attention to these things, right? To see if your plugins are out of date.
Absolutely. Please say.
I was just going to say, it's not just about code, right? I think, obviously everything, starts with code, but if you are just using a plugin that you've been using for a client for the last 2 to 3 years, or plugins that you have been using for various clients, and you don't go back and look at it and say, hey, hey, there's 2 more plugins that are doing this thing that, I don't have to do a workaround for, or just go back and examine the space. I'm always so pleasantly surprised when I go back to do research on different plugins and different solutions, even 6 months later. And especially right now, since so much new stuff is coming out constantly in conjunction with PHP 7, in conjunction with, Gutenberg 5, whatever we're calling it now. It's good to go back, not just for the code, is my point. It's good to go back and look at that stuff and not just get complacent with the plugins either, because so much new stuff is happening.
So I did a kind of a tangent, but related to this. I did a site review this week, and they were using a ThemeForce theme called Bridge that I had never encountered before. Right? It was called Bridge, and the theme itself was 2.5 years old. Right? So part of my point here is this doesn't just apply to plugins; it also applies to themes. So the theme that they were using was released in June of 2016. Right? Here's the problem: is this theme also forced Visual Composer. Now, I'd never seen this before, forced, right? So what this theme did is it actually takes Visual Composer out of your plugins listings in the plugin directory. You don't even see that it's installed, and forces it to be active. That's what this theme does. Yeah. Now, the version of Visual Composer that they were using was version 4.12, which their current version is like 5.7, and was seriously out of date, and there were all kinds of problems, right? And so these things exist. We can't hear you, you're muted, which is the way we like it, but
no, I was gonna say that's shocking. I'm surprised that was not running smooth. It's weird.
Yeah, I know.
So whoa,
and then
crazy.
upgrading Visual Composer went well as well, right, Steve? You just upgraded it in your
you guys, everybody here knows how I feel about Visual Composer.
Would it let you drag and drop?
No.
But VC stands for very cool.
No, that's true.
No, but so wait, I actually have a question, not to get totally tangential with this, but you just did that code review, so you haven't done you haven't fixed it yet, but is your recommendation to go through an upgrade process for that to get it working and then convert to something else? Or are you scrap this thing?
Yeah, let's just update Visual Composer and Bridge. That's all that needs to be done with the site. What could
I don't know, as a stepping stone, or do you just burn it?
Steve, as a friend, Steve, I want to make sure that I'm helping you out. Do you need a Wix or Squarespace with code?
No,
I can hook a brother up if you need to.
The recommendation is to move onto a more modern theme, right, and strip out Visual Composer, right. The other part of this theme that it's doing is it's not just Visual Composer; it installs its own. Let me give you a list here.
I'm surprised that a theme that bundled and forced Visual Composer did something else wrong.
It also
weird.
It also includes a custom post type for portfolios, testimonials, sliders, carousels, and a masonry gallery. So it installs all of this technology, and the client wasn't using any of it.
Wait, are those all separate plugins, or are they just built into the theme?
Those things are actually all built into the theme.
Oh wow!
So nothing is following best practices. Sorry, Casper, go ahead.
I was going to say, I see why the client wants to use it, because it just has everything, every imaginable thing.
Such a good deal, huh?
That sounds great. I mean,
right?
Yeah, the old version of Visual Composer aside, and I think in 5.0 they did a full rewrite of Visual Composer.
They did,
which
probably why that's not updated.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and also the theme hasn't been updated in 2 years, so that's yeah. Interestingly, to steer things back to Manny, I know that with PHP upgrades for your core sites and everything else, there is from my old employer, friend of the show, WP Engine. They have a PHP compatibility checker that is absolutely. I mean, at Liquid Web, we use it because it works, and it works well. It does catch some stuff that isn't always, it does catch some false positives, but the level of false positives, especially since it has been a plugin and they've added false positives to check for, or to gloss over, it's become very good and works quite well. I mean, it's sometimes we have to have interesting discussions with customers who are like, "Hey, why is there this WP Engine thing on my website?" And it's like, well, they built a tool and they built a good tool, so game recognized game, you know.
One of the things they do, the other things they do at WP Engine is inside of your control panel, there is actually a button where you can just say preview my site under PHP 7, whether you plug it or not. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and in the Liquid Web portal, basically, you have your option of 567, 7172. And if you're on 5.6 and you click the 7.2 button, it doesn't just go, okay, you're on 7.2 now. It makes a copy of your site, puts it on 7.2, then sees how it runs on 7.2 with the PHP compatibility checker, checks for errors, etc. If it's successful, then you're good to go. Like, then you're actually upgraded.
That's
what I feel like managed hosting, if you're doing an automatic update, right, that's kind of what has to be done. So I'm curious, Manny, not to like out who you're hosting with or whatever, but like, that doesn't sound like that was happening, because I was, shouldn't they maybe got notification just by email, you're saying that there was something wrong, but they did it anyway. They didn't like put it back. So
yeah, I had to do that.
Oh, is that, did they?
Yeah,
I know, like, for example, HostGator, if you mess something up. No, you don't have to name names. I was just wondering.
Rhymes with.
Yeah. No, actually, it's good. It's good. Hosting companies, SiteGround did this. They pushed to, I think it's 7.1. I think the default system one.
Yeah.
It's super easy. They allow you to go back to 5.6 and then fix everything that you have to do to run on 7, and then change the thing, and I understand why they are doing this, and it's even better. The site is so much faster on PHP 7 now that I think even though the client got like pissed because the site was down for a while, now they see that the site is so much faster that they like it, that is running on PHP 7.
The thing that I think is, go ahead, please. I was going to say that I was going to take us in a little bit of a different direction, so that's why I was saying please say it, but okay. I actually think it is interesting because something that we go through as a managed WordPress host is, and not every managed host does this, but we offer plugin upgrades. And we actually have a managed WooCommerce product where, yes, we offer plugin upgrades, but upgrading WooCommerce core can sometimes be a little problematic. Like if you automate these things that are central to your site's experience, WooCommerce especially, an update between this version and the next, there could be some small breaking changes that the whole set of extensions of that you're running haven't quite updated for this yet, haven't quite like they should, because WooCommerce is great about offering release candidates and stuff like that before they actually offer the upgrade, but it's not always the case.
And Manny kind of framed this originally as a white screen, right? I actually see a white screen as a good thing, because then there's a problem, right? And I can go in, I can look as a developer, I can look at the PHP error log. And typically it's just a line or two of code that I need to make an adjustment for, and I can fix the white screen. The worst ones are when there's a problem that's not obvious. You can't see something that's going on in the background. And WooCommerce, the reason I want to mention this is because Casper brought up WooCommerce. WooCommerce has so many background processes, right? Especially if you're running recurring transactions, that you may not know there's a problem until weeks later.
It also has a lot of extensions that are third party that are performing really crucial components of the purchase process, so it's not just WooCommerce running by itself ever.
Yeah, and that's a show.
Mini stack.
The WooCommerce add-on store is a show all by itself, because they have their own set of rules that they run under, right? It's not, their plugins aren't vetted the same way as what's in the plugin directory. It's a whole separate deal. right? And the quality is not always there. You can't just install a WooCommerce add-on and count on the best. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I have a question for Jason. When you guys do the plugin upgrades, do you actually test the website, like all the possible scenarios and stuff like that, or just do the upgrade?
We do have a regression tester. So effectively, when the site gets upgraded, we check the main page and a few other pages and actually do at least a very basic visual comparison. So if you update the site and all of a sudden it says error establishing a database connection, or even to the extent where
even you saying that makes me anxious. I was like, ugh.
Or even your sidebar hops down 20 pixels, it'll go, some things have changed, so we didn't actually upgrade these plugins. And it will send you a message like, hey, you might want to take a look at this and make sure that things are okay for you before you mash the upgrade button. Like, we go ahead and hand that back to you to, like, okay, you push the button.
You're like, here's your accountability back. There you go. Yeah. There might be some problems.
So I've heard Casper speak about testing, and especially about visual testing, and it's really fascinating stuff. If you're not a Liquid Web customer, one of the SaaS products out there that I recommend is called Ghost Inspector. That it does what Casper's talking about as well, which will do a visual check of your site so that when code is changed, you roll out something, you can tell it. You can set a percentage basically and say, if this site is more than 20% different from what it was before this rollout, send me an alert, right? You can even, we have it set up where it'll block our code rollouts if it fails Ghost Inspector tests.
Yeah, especially for, I think, WooCommerce updates. Whenever we do like WooCommerce updates and upgrades, we had to do the whole checkout. We usually do that on staging and then, test the whole thing, which takes time. And sometimes there are so many different scenarios that you have to test, different products. This is a subscription, this one is a variable product, this one is a simple product, and whatever, So the upgrade takes time because of the testing that we have to do after that, especially, if those sites that have like a lot of transactions,
So I have a question about that. You're not a host, right, Manny?
No.
And obviously, Steve, you're not a host, right? So we were talking about the host notifying the customer that their PHP version was going to change. And I'm assuming, I don't know whether you guys have maintenance clients or contracts with your clients or how that works, but, a maintenance contract doesn't necessarily account for PHP compatibility testing and upgrades. So is that something that you contact, like at what point do you tell your clients, hey, FYI, PHP is coming out, we're going to need to upgrade all your stuff. Here's how much that's going to cost. And then educate them on the fact that that's just happening and they don't really have a choice moving forward. What is that when is that conversation taking place with you guys?
That's a really good question. I think it depends. Sometimes we do the hosting. We have like AWS account with EC2 instances for some clients. But some other clients, they think that once the site is up there, that's it. You don't touch it anymore. But I usually tell them, I compare a house. You have to maintain your house, right? You have to, after so many years, you have to paint your house. You have to do maintenance. Otherwise, the house, degrade.
It's run down.
Yeah. So yeah, and you have to, otherwise something else bad could happen, and then we do have to scare them a little bit, right? If the price to do this, it's this right now.
You just break a little thing.
Yeah, if the site crashes or something, and then you are in a hurry, and it's Saturday night, and I'm on a date with my girlfriend, then the price is twice the price, right? So,
that one screen is going to cost you on Saturday night. Just FYI.
Yeah.
I think it's fairly interesting that you can say okay, things are going to break, things are going to happen, over the course of maintenance. An easy way to spin some of those maintenance, okay, I want to do maintenance or have you set up on a maintenance contract for your clients. You can effectively say to them, especially if you get some pushback on that, think of it like you're in an office building right now, probably. You know, the office pays somebody to come through and empty the trash every day. Pay someone to come through and vacuum the carpets once a week. You can do that yourself, save the money, or and potentially, you know, forget about that trash can in the back, and all of a sudden it's overflowing. You know, not vacuum for a few weeks, and the next thing you know, you're tracking dirt, you know, into the rest of the office building or whatever.
Or there's
Things
a rat
like
problem, which I think is a great extension of this analogy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we pay for our house. We pay to have an exterminator come through. We don't have a bug problem, but he sprays for all the bugs that we might have, and it's insurance.
There are two different also types of updates, right? That is like just like the feature upgrades, and then there's the security updates, which is, I think, usually when the security ones, they push it right away. They don't care if it's going to break it or not, right? Because it could affect all the clients, right?
Well, and the security updates come in minor point releases normally. And you know, minor point releases have broken things in the past. They've broken smaller things, but they've still managed to break things. But then at that point, they push another release that has the fix for that thing that they just broke.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think it's also like the street out front of your office that is being updated. You have no control over that at all, but they're resurfacing the street. That's maintenance, but it has nothing to do with you, but has everything to do with you. And that's just, you know, that's PHP being upgraded. That's all that sort of stuff. So yeah. There's things you can't control.
I like Manny's initial analogy of the house, right? The way we typically talk about maintenance is just set those expectations right up front with all of our clients. So in part of our kickoff meeting, we let them know, hey, these are things that can change on your website that are out of our control, right? And so they will have to be dealt with, and we've got your back, and that's what maintenance is for.
So in this case with PHP 7, like, are you contacting your clients and saying, hey, we need to do some extra testing and make sure this works? Or is it included? Are you doing that as part of your ongoing maintenance testing? Or
so what we didn't talk about is the emails that come out constantly from WP Engine, right? So WP Engine, where a lot of my clients host, right, is sends out all these warning emails, and I have my clients set up their own relationship with the hosting company, right? So they get these emails. Right. So I actually don't have to do much. I get the emails forwarded from the clients saying, okay, what are we going to do about this? Especially when when the words like imminent are in there, right?
I mean, that's kind of like a good thing between, like, a good host could, you know, encourage the person and say, hey, this may break your site. You should go talk to the person who made your site for you. And, you know, there's kind of that relationship where it's like the host can then empower the
and I think
client to talk to the developer.
Yeah, the client must value that you are being proactive, right? You are telling them, you know, upfront what's going to happen, not after the fact. You know what I'm saying? That's what is the difference between being a professional and an amateur, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we have a process where we have a weekly meeting with all of our clients. And so this is something we've been mentioning for 6 months or even longer now.
Year.
Yeah, frankly, all of our clients are already PHP 7 compatible. So once the clients have gotten these emails, right, we've already informed them. They know what's happening. Yeah.
I got a little. It's good for radio.
Yeah. Definitely. We got people in the chat room that are asking all sorts of questions and doing some stuff. One in particular, which we'll probably have to talk about in a future episode, that sounds pretty interesting, is this idea of someone else's code running on your customer server and having to explain to them that you aren't WordPress, and you're also not all the plugins that are on the WordPress. We have to talk about this
next week.
This is
I won't be on next week. Let's 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
All right. 2 weeks.
Love this topic.
Yeah, it's such a good idea. It's like just
you are not your plugins. That's what we should call it. You are not your code.
One of the joke taglines we have here at Zeek is quality is not our problem.
Right.
That's just there. You can tell your client that. Go ahead and use that.
Qualities that are not your problem. Awesome. Well, I want to say thank you all for coming on the show and hanging out with us. I really appreciate it. Manny, it's good to see you again. Cosper, it's always good to have you on. Steve, whatever. As always, I want to say thank you all for putting in the effort and the time to come and hang out with me and hanging out with the folks that are in our chat room and you're talking about stuff. So
you've got to start linking to the chat. I feel bad ignoring everybody, but I'm not used to the chat yet, so we got to make that a thing.
I add that into my thing of being able to hook you guys up with that. So go back to our website at WPwatercooler.com/subscribe. That's where you can learn about subscribing to this content here. Talk to y'all later.
All right, bye.